Hello everyone. In this video, we'll talk about how generative AI models are trained, and these generative AI models are powering application like ChatGPT. So there are several stages of training, three to be specific, and so in every stage, the model gets refined, and it closely mimics human conversation. Right? So the first stage is the generative pre-training, and the second stage is supervised fine-tuning, and the third stage is reinforcement learning with human feedback, shortly called as RLHF. First, we'll see the first stage one, which is generative pre-training. In this stage, huge internet data that is fed into the transformer architecture, and these internet data could be Wikipedia, books, articles, any publishing, whatnot. So whatever is we see in the internet, and those data are fed as a training data. Right. So here two things is happening. One is basically the model tries to understand the language pattern, context, style, etc. Another aspect is that it also understands the knowledge. For example, it can understand physics, medical, chemistry, any subject, right? So it is both has a capability to understand language as well as the knowledge. So then it also has a capability to generate some cohesive or relevant data. Okay. So this is what we call as the base model. But now, so this is very good at text completion, text summary, sentiment analysis, etc. But what it lacks is it lacks that conversational chatbot like interaction, right? So that's our objective. So it has to mimic human style of interaction. So that's what it has to mimic, but it lacks that. So that's why we need to fine tune this further. If I have to say, summarize stage one. So here, quantity of data is given precedence over the quality of data. So it has a huge quantity in the order of tens of terabytes of data. And also it is very computationally intensive. So for example, it will need 6,000 GPUs and running for 12 days to complete this stage. So the main priority is to make the model understand language as well as the knowledge. So if you consider that model's behavior with respect to conversation chatbot, it's very random, and it will not be polite. It will be very raw and rude. So it needs further fine tuning. So that's what we'll do in stage 2, which is supervised fine tuning. So in this stage, the model is tuned for a particular task. So here conversation is our task. So that's what we want model to be good at. So first step is we collect human conversation. So there will be a request sent by a human, and then there will be the response, the ideal response that what we want from model, that will be given by human agent. That will become the ideal response. So this pair, request and ideal response, constitute one conversation. So like this, several thousands of conversations are recorded and stored as a demonstration data, and this act as a training corpus, and this training corpus is fed into base model, and then we get what we call as the supervised fine-tuning model. So now this is definitely far better than the base model in terms of conversational chatbot. So it can answer politely, it can answer in a socially acceptable way, but the problem is that it can only understand and give answer what it is trained for. So we have limited set of request and ideal response training data set that is fed into the base model. So this SFT model can only answer if it gets a prompts within that realm, right? So if it gets any random prompt that is outside of this training set, then it will freak out. So that's where we need to make it more proactive than the reactive. So that's what we will do it in the next stage. To summarize this, in this stage, supervised fine-tuning stage, quality is given priority over the quantity. and the range will be 100k request response will be fed as a training data, and it is relatively less compute intensive, although it is also compute intensive, but it is way lesser than the previous stage. And that priority in this stage is to create a assistant model, and the model behavior will be socially acceptable. It's still, but it lacks accuracy when it is given the question out of this training data set. So we will fix that in we'll see how this is fixed in the stage 3. Okay, stage 3 is reinforcement learning with human feedback. So here there are two parts to it. First part is we need to create reward model, and the second part is creating a final model. So how do we create the reward model? Right. So the supervised fine-tuning model is taken, and then human agent gives the request, and it gets multiple responses, and then human labeler will rank all those responses for the same request, and then ranks it from best to worst. This is called comparison label, and this comparison label, several thousands of comparison labels are created, and then that is stored as a comparison data. So then this training corpus is applied to SFT model, and then finally we get reward model. So in reinforcement learning with RLHF stage, part 1 of creating reward model is done. So now a labeler trainer gives a prompt, and then this reward model gives the score for that prompt dynamically, and based on the score, SFT model finalizes the final response, and this feedback is again fed into the model, and this process continuously repeats. And there will be these prompts will be generated for hundreds of thousands of prompts will be generated, and the model is more and more fine-tuned to give the accurate answer, even if it is given dynamic prompt. So then finally we get the final model that we all see, and this is more suitable for human conversation. So to sum it up, here the priorities, the human feedback is forms a main data set to create reward model, and once that reward model is created, then that acts as a dynamic feedback mechanism for the prompt, and here the focus is more of alignment. Then the behavior is, so it's more of acceptable and mimics the human conversation. Okay, to summarize the training, there are three stages. First one is the pre-training, and here quantity is given precedence over quality, and it's the main objective is to make the model understand the language and the knowledge, but the behavioral is not acceptable. So we get into that fine-tuning of this model for chat interaction, which is supervised fine-tuning. Here quality is given precedence over the quantity, and so the human real conversation between the two human, so that is recorded, and that forms a training data set, and that is fed to train, and then finally we get a model that more looks like a assistant, and behavior also it will be acceptable, socially acceptable, but still it may not perform well when it is encountered with the new prompt that is not part of the training data set. So that's why we need some mechanism to have the dynamic feedback mechanism on the go. So which is called as a reinforcement learning with human feedback, which is a third and final stage. So there human feedbacks are used. Human ranks the response, and then these training data comparison labels are used to create a reward model, and this reward model act as a dynamically injecting the score to the model for any before the model gives out the actual response. So that actual model checks with this reward model, and then picks the one that has the highest score and gives out the result. And here the focus is more of alignment. and the model behavior is it's acceptable for the human conversation. If you like this content, please subscribe to my newsletter, theaidiscovery.com, and also you will get free ebook on ultimate resource for generative AI. Thank you.